Just an off-the-cuff chat between you and me. Us. We want to talk right down to earth in a language that everybody here can easily understand.
Who are these people?
It's us. We're these people.
I love that intro. I love that intro so much.
I'm here with a different co-host this time, Oz LaFave.
Hey guys, thanks so much for having me on.
Friend of the show, DJ Joe Nice. How are you, friend?
What's good? And you hear Nick say this all the time. The United States is the most propagandized country in the world.
We are so fucked, you guys. Again, I'm sorry for being cynical, but seriously,
No.
we're fucked. We are
Right.
fucked. We are well and truly fucking fucked.
Just appreciate all the work that you do and the platforms that you all are providing.
Hey, you. Doing good. How are you guys doing?
And as independent media, we have a responsibility to be, we don't hide our bias, obviously, but we must stay true to the facts.
What's up, Pam?
Cheers and salutations. Welcome if you got them.
But I am here with a man that I've been waiting to talk to for the last couple of years, Nico House.
As an educator, what I would suggest is that, first of all, podcasts like these are made.
So you need to be an example for the people and for the future, knowing that your words can actually change the future.
What do you feel? What would Kwame Ture feel we would have to do?
Well, politics is every day of every minute. You have to be aware of what's going on. Not voting on one day, so the vote has never meant anything. So I'm not a Democrat.
See, I would call that guy the Black Obama.
No. The issues that we talk about, listen to us.
As always, kids, labels are bad. Stay independent. Good night, fam.
INN News.
Who are these people?
What else we got on the board for today? Survey says more book bans sought in 2021 than any other point in the past 20 years, group says. This is from Truth Out, Chris Walker, right? So findings from a library organization published on Monday showcase that efforts from right-wing groups, quote unquote, and parents across the country to restrict access to books represent the highest number of challenges to book titles since the year 2000. According to the ALA, the American Library Association, which has been tracking such challenges for over 20 years, more than 700 challenges were made in 2021. These efforts to ban books were directed towards ones that were written by or depict the lives of Black or LGBTQ individuals. ALA's Office for Intellectual Freedom tracked 729 challenges to library, school, and university materials and services in 2021, resulting in more than 1,597 individual book challenge or removals, the organization said in a press release published on Monday. So, I would love if we could also find when the left-wingers do this, because I'm sure they do.
Yeah. They just kind of like what we were talking about before the show is that right-wingers and left-wingers, particularly like the elites, they're all for censorship of books and media. It's just a matter of what they choose to target. The right-wingers tend to be more like, they want to get rid of books written by Black people that portray the difficulties of being a Black person in the United States, or LGBTQ writers, whereas the neoliberals are more like, well, we don't want anybody that uses too harsh a language or that talks about revolutions or that has too much violence in it. You're never going to see a bunch of the right-wingers being angry about a book being too violent, but you'll see the neoliberals do that all the time with film and books as well. So it's just a matter of what they're censoring. And this is why I'm doing my Pay It Forward project Bookworm on my, in my spare time, is because this is only going to get worse. With both movies and film in this country. It doesn't matter who's at the helm, Trump, Biden, as long as the elites in their current stranglehold on media exist, they're going to use their troll farms, they're going to use their apparatus to censor things like this. And that's just something we have to combat.
So ALA President Patricia Patty Wong said in a statement that parents should involve themselves in what books their children decide or want to read, but restricting other parents' rights to do the same can harm children. We support individual parents' choices concerning their child's reading and believe that parents should not have those choices dictated by others, Wong said. Young people need to have access to a variety of books from which they can learn about different perspectives. Libraries remain ready to do what we always have, make knowledge and ideas available so people are free to choose what to read, Wong added. The vast majority of Americans oppose book bans. The ALA conducted a poll published last month demonstrating that 71% of U.S. voters opposed efforts to remove books from schools, libraries, or universities. That includes 70% of Republican respondents who agreed that book bans are harmful, the poll found. So, in spite of that, however, there have been a large and vocal push by conservative groups and parents promoted by Republican lawmakers to restrict access to books they deem objectionable. The push to politicize Black and LGBTQ people's existence is evidence of growing fascism on the right. Importantly, those efforts have been opposed by many librarians throughout the country. Some have ignored requests from lawmakers to compile titles for them that could contain material that they object to, limiting these politicians' abilities to use such books to make political grandstanding gestures that are meant to appeal to bigoted constituents. Students have also opposed attempts to ban them from reading books that the far right wants banned. In some Texas schools, for instance, students have created book clubs that specifically highlight banned titles. Texan students have noted the hypocrisy of trying to ban books as some of the reasons given for banning books about Black or LGBTQ people aren't also applied to books with white or heterosexual characters. Book titles with heterosexual scenes, heterosexual ideas were permissible, but the second something turns slightly queer, slightly homosexual, it discomforts them. One student, Megan Sadeghi, a senior at a high school outside of Houston, said to the Texas Tribune in early March, "Why do we have to remove books about Black people and Asian Americans simply for the sake of white people's comfort?" Sadeghi added. So definitely some id poll stuff going on here, but I just thought Go ahead.
I love that the students are doing that, by the way. That's exactly what I'm doing with my project, where I collect books from all of the like Goodwills and Habitat for Humanity, and I'll buy them used online. Right. Books that have traditionally been censored, but also books that I think are going to get censored. And then I write in the inside of the title page right there, this is not a book that should ever end up on a bookshelf. After you've read it, pass it on to somebody and spread it all over the place. When I see that there's a piece of media or entertainment that's being censored, my first impulse is always to go out there and watch it or read it to see why the establishment is trying to get rid of it. And you see that with old books, again, written by Black authors or LGBTQ authors. But in the future, and I talked to you about this, Reef, they started taking V for Vendetta, which is one of my favorite graphic novels, off of the bookshelves. Mouse, which is, again, deals with Nazis, has been censored as well. Why the Last Man? And a lot of these are, in fact, they're not being taken down by just right-wingers, as that Truth Out article says. They're being taken down by liberals who they don't like that they're revolutionary minded. And that's why V for Vendetta is a dangerous book to some people. It has nothing to do with any, homosexuality or racist undertones or exposing, even white supremacy. It's all about, it's like a template for revolution. So they want it taken down. Same reason why for a while there, the ending of Fight Club was censored in China. There's a reason that they're doing that. So what I've done is, in my spare time, I have a buddy that has a movie theater in downtown Peoria. So every Friday we show censorable movies, and we have people come over and hang out and watch the movies. And I hand out books for free that I find that are censorable books. So I've got a ton of them. We have to fight censorship somehow, because this is like book burning. Back in the day, they burned books because the internet didn't exist. But now all of this stuff, what they want to do is essentially book burning by removing it not only from the shelves, but also removing it from the internet and censoring it. It's essentially the same function. And that's what we've got. And we have in this country, in fact, the Democrats are in charge, and this is happening. Right. So, it's coming from both parties. I don't want to, not say that the right wingers don't do the same thing. They do, but they do it for different reasons. And they both kind of types of the neolibs versus the right wingers, they both want to censor different things. How about we just say no more cancel culture. Let people say what they want to say, and let's not become Nazi Germany. People should be able to read whatever they want.
Yeah,
but if you don't want to read the book, don't read the book.
They haven't read Fahrenheit 451 because it was banned.
Exactly.
They don't know that.
Exactly. That's one of the books I have.
Right.
I have 2 copies.
Anything by Steinbeck, usually gets pulled too. Like, especially Grapes of Wrath was on the constant ban stuff for a minute.
Was it? I have that copy. I might add that to the stack.
Like, there's tons of those books that are out there that people. Here's what I feel like should be done, and I felt that way for a minute. If you go into any hotel room or motel room, whether you paid hourly or by day, I'll let you guys decide which one you did. If you just open that drawer, what's in there?
Bible.
Right. All the time. I would love for people to start leaving, put the manifesto in there,
Dude, that's a good idea.
Like, put whatever in there.
That.
So, like, regardless of what, I think getting those kind of books and information out there is, a big deal, right? You should take a camera next time you do one of those, film nights. That would be fun.
Yeah, I did last time. It was just a little too dark. We watched Fight Club last week, and then this week we've got Clockwork Orange and Dr. Strangelove. So we're doing 2 Kubricks.
Those will be good.
That ought to be fun. Yeah, that's going to be Friday at 7:30 in downtown Peoria. If you guys want to come hang out with me. I'll do an episode about it tomorrow on my show.
Nice. Sounds good.
Who are these people?
It brings me to my next article, which is from the ever detailed Alan MacLeod, which I finally found an Alan MacLeod article that isn't like 9 pages. So that's nice. Thank you, Alan. This is about how one spook-run London college department is training the world's social media managers. So a lot of these social media companies have had, like feds be shoved into them. And we'll get exactly into how Alan MacLeod has laid all this out. But, they've also, I'm pretty sure it was, it might have been Alan, but it might have been Max, who talked about a couple of UK, like media influencers. We're getting information from Bellingcat, right? If I'm not mistaken. Anyway, I do remember. I'm trying to. Indy will remember the article I'm talking about if he's in chat. Anyway, did that have like a little blurb? No. Okay. So staffed by NATO military officers and former government ministers and notorious for training the West's top spies, the Department of War Studies at King's College London is also providing the workforce for many of the largest social media companies. This includes Facebook, TikTok, Google, and Twitter. Right?
Pause right there. The fact is like a Department of War.
Mm-hmm. War Studies, yeah. Yeah.
Like, that's some shit that sounds like Saga and Jetty would get into.
Probably did at least a semester there.
It's probably just the Hudson Institute.
What's that thing where you go, you don't get credit, but you go anyway? Like you audit? Isn't like auditing a class or whatever? You can like just sit into the class. You don't have to like, there's a thing. Anyway. So, a Mint Press study of professional databases and employment websites reveals a wide network of War Studies alumni holding many of the most influential jobs in media, constituting a silent army of individuals who influence what the world sees and does not see in its social media feeds. I love capitalism fucking itself over. I love it. I love that. You just got to follow the money.
By the got smart. Like they're just, they know that social media is trending and they know that it works.
Yep. Yeah. So, Alan MacLeod setting this up with Spy School, which would make a great movie. We had Monster High.
Spy Kid, not Spy Kid, Spy School.
Yeah, you go to Spy School.
That What's that movie where like everyone in the high school has superpowers?
Sky High.
Another great movie
Sky
of my
High.
childhood from the Disney Channel. Which I'm sure they also have plenty of, war studies alumni over at Disney.
They're in CIA.
So, set in an imposing building near the banks of the River Thames in central London, the Department of War Studies is at the heart of the British establishment. Current staff includes the former Secretary General of NATO, former UK Ministry of Defence, and a host of military officers from NATO and NATO-aligned countries. So, it is also a favored training ground for the Secret Services. A 2009 report published by the CIA described how beneficial it is to use universities as means of intelligence training. I saw frequently right after the Howard sit-in that Afeni was a part of, I heard on the nice, polite Republican radio that the CIA did like a jobs program at Howard right after that. So
colleges, I know a couple people like who's like they've been to like job fairs and stuff.
Yep. So if you ever see someone on their LinkedIn with like, CIA analyst training and, stuff like that, and they were near Langley and going to college near there, you might question things. Like people at TYT and now Rolling Stone are letting write pieces for them. But I digress. It is also a favorite training ground. We reread that, right? We are not concerned here with the acquisition of subject knowledge or the honing of technique of analysis. Such teaching is best delivered in a secure environment with the classified databases and tools to which analysts would have access in their work. Exposure to an academic environment, such as the Department of War Studies at King's College London, can add several elements that may be harder to provide within the government system. Close access to academic disciplines such as military history, intelligence history, international relations, social studies, and so on. An introduction to the relevant literature and exposure to a variety of critical views, including the unorthodox, but most of all, it offers a containing space in which analysts from every part of the community can explore with ease. I imagine that was meant to be. In 2013, then Secretary of Defense and former CIA Director Leon Panetta gave a speech at the department. I deeply appreciate the work that you do to train and to educate our future national security leaders, many of whom are in this audience, he said, adding that exposure into tech surveillance and cyber warfare was of critical importance. Last year, Mint Press investigated the department's intelligence links more deeply. Moreover, the university has freely admitted to having entered into a number of secret funding alignment agreements with the UK Foreign Office and the Ministry of Defense. However, it was refused to elaborate on these contracts, telling investigative news outlets Declassified UK that doing so could undermine national security. Of course it could. Can't see what's going on behind those closed doors. No, sir. Or follow that money in this case. Where's it saying that funding was from? Has freely admitted having entered into a number of secret funding agreements with the UK Foreign Office. Right. Yeah, they're getting the good money from the, Madam Secretary over there, just handing out big checks. Right? So, we got to get that new ping pong table, though, in the break room. Anyway.
We're gonna need some new lights right here.
Yeah, we're gonna need new lights. So while the Department of War Studies plays a key role in producing the West's intelligence operatives, it also trains many of the world's top journalists, as well as social media managers whose task it is to protect us from the misinformation put out by the others. What does that sound like? As such, it is an essential part of the new high-tech information war being waged between Russia and the West, in which the national security state is increasingly taking control over the means of communication under the guise of protecting us from the Kremlin. So that's the official statements. Yeah. Disinformation Governance Board, anyone?
This misinformation is better than their misinformation.
Right? Yeah. This is, thought speak. Speak thought.
The war of misinformation.
Yeah.
Who's better at misinformation?
You're going to Big Brother to tell you everyone else what to say, like with social media, pretty much. So, but anyway, so we start with Facebook. At any one time, the department educates around 1,000 students, many of whom have gone on to become top military commanders, intelligence chiefs, and government officials, both in the West and in countries as disparate as Jordan, Nigeria, and Singapore. But increasingly, large numbers of war studies graduates are finding employment in the most influential media outlets on both the sides of the Atlantic and in Silicon Valley. So, chief amongst the social media companies where war studies graduates hold considerable sway is Facebook, now rebranded as Meta. For example, while working at senior levels in the UK government, Mark Smith pursued a master's at the department, completing it in 2009. Between 2007 and 2017, he worked for the Ministry of Defense, the Foreign Office, and the National Security Secretariat, which is not the horse. According to his own LinkedIn profile, he was deployed overseas 3 times as political advisor to top NATO military commanders and was a key figure in strategizing responses to ISIS and other terrorist groups, as well as working on the Ministry of Defense response to the Scottish independence question. So they try to control that narrative too. I wanted to bring up real quick because it just came out today. So I just had to go to my YouTube feed real quick. Joe Rogan had none other than, Zuck HD 3000. The newest edition of the Facebook owner robot on his podcast. If I just find that real quick. I hear he drinks water and smokes meats.
Are you going to play it? We might get copyright.
JRE's fine, I think. Okay. In this case. It's like a JRE clip. I think I played JRE stuff before and it's fine. So let me grab that. Bring this over here.
You can buy into it. I haven't seen this yet.
Yeah, I'm not going to play the whole 15 minutes, but I'm gonna show everyone a secret here, right? If I go to this button right there and I go to show transcript,
he has like a tendency like
Control F.
His guess.
FBI.
Like he just agrees with whatever guest he has on. It's from just more than what I've seen, at least recently.
And then
we'll see what he
hold
does.
On. I'm looking for a specific thing. We're doing it live, people. Let me do, because it's gonna be so we'll start here.
The Hunter Biden laptop story, the New York Post.
We had that too.
Yeah, so you guys censored that as well?
So we took a different path than Twitter. I mean, basically the background here is the FBI, I think, basically came to us.
That was fast. I found that real quick. So you just show transcript and Control F, everybody.
Some folks on our team, it was like, hey, just so you know, like you should be on high alert. There was we thought that there was a lot of Russian propaganda in the 2016 election. We have it on notice that basically there's about to be some kind of dump of that's similar to that. So just be vigilant. So our protocol.
Be vigilant. That's what the FBI told Facebook.
He's saying it out loud. They literally just go to these companies and they're like, "Hey, you should be doing this."
Yep.
And what are they going to do? I mean,
well, and it's technically they have people on the board too, pretty much. Like they're infecting everywhere as like
this, yeah.
Yeah. So, in 2017, Smith moved straight from the government to Meta, where he is now the global director of global content management, giving him considerable power to dictate what is allowed and what is censored from the world's biggest news and media platform. So Facebook's global director of strategic response is also a former war studies student. After graduating, Caitlin Baker worked on Middle Eastern counterterrorism policy in the Office of the Secretary of Defense in Washington and is director for Jordan and Lebanon at the National Security Council at the White House. Between 2015 and 2017, she was also VP Joe Biden's Middle East policy advisor. During this time period, the administration rapidly expanded its drone program, coming to bomb 7 countries simultaneously. So,
7 countries.
In October 2017, Baker moved seamlessly from the Defense Secretary's office to work for Facebook's strategic response team, rising to become a global director. The strategic response team decides how Facebook will react to global events like elections, wars, and coups, determining what content will be permissible and which views will be banned or suppressed. So meet the head of the, Big Brother division on, ThoughtSpeak here at Facebook. So there are many more war study graduates in influential roles at Facebook, including Louis Babington Reynolds, Public Policy Manager for Dangerous Organizations, Monica Thurmond Allen, Director of Public Policy for Campaigns and Programs, Claire Akayu, whatever.
Akayui, I think.
Akayui, bless you. Intelligence Lead for Europe, the Middle East, and Africa. Olivia Miner, Intelligence Analyst for Europe, the Middle East, and Africa. Evia Orlando, Imminent Risk Project Manager. Fiona Moody, Lead Regulatory Litigation Counsel. Dane Roth, Design Program Manager. And Kediana Cadet, Program Manager and People Experience. So, just in case we find these names pop up later in our dealings. While this is certainly not to say that all those mentioned are government plants, no, we would never say something like that, or even that they are anything but model employees. This connection does come at a time when Facebook has rapidly begun intertwining itself with the national security state. In 2018, the company announced that in a bid to combat fake news, it was partnering with NATO think tank, the Atlantic Council, in a deal that gave the later significant influence on the platform's content. Today, Facebook's head of intelligence is NATO's former press officer, and a Mint Press study published last month detailed how the company has hired dozens of former CIA officials, many of whom now hold the most politically sensitive positions in the company and are in charge of deciding what billions of users see daily. Thoughts so far?
I joked about Sagar, but
This is why I really think that we kind of need to disconnect from the internet a little bit. I kind of brought that up before.
Yeah.
The central intelligence, like in a lot of intelligence agencies and a lot of these like warhead machines are putting all of their eggs in one basket, and that's in social media and the internet. And once you disconnect from that, they don't really have any other method of control. Does that make any sense?
Yes.
No, it makes sense, but it's a double-edged sword because now
talks about this too. She mentions like how a lot of these
things are interconnected groups of agencies and connections.
They're just hyper focused on social media because A, they know it works, and B, that's all they have right now.
Yeah. Yep. I mean, and you see it in every platform, they just put the little fingers in everywhere, and
because it works.
Yes. I mean, it
no one else has another, because everyone's on the internet, so they don't really have a choice.
Well, and it sows paranoia, and you don't know who to trust. It makes it harder to organize. All those things are problems, So, but we'll continue a little bit over to everyone's favorite platform, TikTok, which also has loads of its own problems.
I had to delete this after reading it a little bit. Yeah. So, War Studies alumni also held several influential positions on the video platform TikTok. These include Heine Ryman Shepherd,
an intelligence analyst who works on threat detection and identifying hate speech, extremism, and mis- and disinformation. Michael Cayley, content strategy leader, Manish Gohil, a former risk analyst for TikTok, Alexandra Dinka, investigations lead, Jeannie Sun, safety program manager, and Todd Dudley, head of physical security. He's their Worf. They don't listen to him. You know, they tell him, no, Worf, we can't attack the ship. They're nice people. But Scott O'Brien, see, I knew that reference was coming. Meanwhile, worked for both Facebook and TikTok, first as an intelligence analyst for Facebook, where he specialized in human rights investigations in at-risk countries. According to his LinkedIn, he is now an influence operations, intelligence, and discovery analyst. God, I'm glad I took a big breath before that one. At TikTok. Before that, he worked for the infamous intelligence agency Pinkerton.
Is that supposed to be a reference to Rockefeller?
What, the Pinkerton?
Like the Pinkertons, is that like really something? Is that what they're referencing, or does that mean something else?
Maybe. I'm sure someone could Google that for us, young Jamie, if you're out there. In recent times,
Pull that shit up. Pull that shit up, Jamie.
Pull that shit up, Jamie. In recent times, TikTok has been the recipient of significant amounts of government attention from the Trump administration's threats to ban the platform altogether, to the news that President Biden was briefing TikTok stars on how they should cover the war in Ukraine, and U.S. government, it appears, performed a 100-degree turn on the app. Yes, we can control it now, yes. This occurred at the same time as the company began employing large numbers of state functionaries in key positions, including individuals from NATO, the White House, and the CIA. A Mint Press investigation detailed all this, described it as a NATO to TikTok pipeline. So, one of the things we're all on, Twitter and Google. Twitter has comparatively fewer war studies alumni, but some are in important positions. For instance, Global Program Manager Sean Ryan describes his role as leading a global program team that drives a holistic understanding of Twitter's dynamic risk and threat landscape while working across the cyber, physical, information platform, policy, health, and reputation domains. He notes that his analysis informs the decision-making of strategic leadership while supporting key policies across multiple teams. As vague as he can possibly put, he controls everything. Twitter's Director of Insider Risk and Investigations, Bruce A., is also a former KCL man. Bruce A. spent 23 years in the FBI, becoming a supervisory special agent, leaving the Bureau in 2020 to directly transfer to Twitter. So another King's Cross, King's College of London, war room. What do they call that? The Department of War Studies at King's College of London. Bruce is just dozens of FBI agents and analysts that Twitter has hired in the past few years, the majority of whom have been parachuted into highly politically sensitive fields such as security, content moderation, and trust and safety, thus effectively giving the Bureau considerable influence over the platform's content and outlook. Google, too, employs a number of war studies graduates, among them Asia-Pacific Information Policy Lead Jean-Jacques Sahil, Policy Advisor Grant Hurst, and Global Threat Analysis Jessica O. I mean, we had Physical Security Officer in Worf, we had O'Brien, and now we got Jean-Jacques. You know, like my little Star Trek brain is just going off in here. But last but not least, which I know we kind of talked a bit about this already. So, journalism for a single department in one college of a university is remarkable. The impact the Department of War Studies has had on the field of journalism as well. The department pushes vastly above its weight, with alumni in most of the world's top media outlets, including CNN, NBC News, the New York Times, Reuters, and the Wall Street Journal, as well as a host of individuals populating the ranks of British state broadcaster, the BBC. Indeed, it appears that breaking into the field of journalism is the goal, then a degree from the Department of War Studies is more helpful than one from King's College London's Department of Culture, Media, and Creative Industries. It's de facto journalism school. So, I mean, I feel like this is in order.
Congratulations, you played yourself.
It's de facto journalism department. is not being hired by the BBC. Who is being hired? Department of War Studies. Like, they have more people involved at the BBC from the Department of War than they do the de facto journalism at the same school. What? How is that not a giant red flag? Say again, Crab?
Just like, what does war studies mean? Is that just getting as much of the control over the narrative to
basically,
yeah.
That's really all it is, right?
Well, and it's also, I mean, technically, if we like at the front of the article, it talked a bit about like what the college does specifically teach in that like department, and there was like war history, you know, strategies and analysis, and like, you know, social studies, that kind of stuff.
It seems like their only job is to hype up more war.
Yes. Yeah, it's Department of Strategy. It's like, yeah, it's filled with generals. It's generals and fucking, you know, ex-generals and wannabe generals. Like, you know.
But you know what,
though? These people are like literally insane. Like, they really want to see like the world get like nukes.
But it's also the people controlling
the end time.
The people controlling the narrative there, controlling the curriculum, are NATO plants. Literally. Like, they are heads of NATO.
The people who get into this stuff are the same kind of people who are like truly believe in this at the same time. They're fucking psychos, and they essentially control the world.
You know what I just thought of? Like, in an alternate universe, if this department was actually taken over by lefties and like kind of flip the script in terms of like infiltrating into these,
I mean,
you know, social media platforms as well as, you know, like mainstream media to advocate for like issues on the left versus, you know, like uplifting a narrative as a means to control or to kind of dull down people's senses as to what is really going on.
Right.
You know, behind the scenes. Like, I just had that thought just came into my mind, but I think like it kind of relates to what I just talked about earlier. Like the idea
how
of
much, like how many of those are in the WEF Global Leaders? Right, have been alumni of that.
I can imagine in the World Bank as well.
Yeah,
I'm sure there's going to be a few of those. Or IMF. Or like,
right.
You know,
look, all I want to see is like the Dangerfield movie, like, you know, where he goes back to school, but it's this, you know, he goes back to this department. Like, I feel like that would be good.
Like what I said in the chat the other day. Like, they should make a Black Mirror episode where everyone on the internet is an AI besides you.
Or
everyone on the internet's an op besides you. Like, you're the only real person on the internet.
Yeah. Everyone else is just robots.
Either that or they're like a CIA operative. Like, literally everyone.
Everything's controlled. You're the sole last heir to some king, and no one tells you. You know, that kind of nonsense. You know. But anyway. So, you know, watchers of the show will remember some of these journalists cut their teeth in investigative outlets. Well, you'll remember that name, Bellingcat, for sure. And Graphica, both of whom are funded by the U.S. government, and both of whom pull out questionable reports demonizing official enemy nations. No fewer than 6 Bellingcat employees or contributors, including Cameron Colquhoun, Jacob Beaters, Lincoln Pigman, which I hope he has a previous job in law enforcement. Alamu, that's a weird name. Alamy Leroy, Christian Trebert, and senior investigator Nick Waters all proposed postgraduate studies within the department. Indeed, Bellingcat founder Elliot Higgins joined the Department of War Studies in 2018 as a visiting research associate.
Jihad will rise.
Yeah. Yes. Graphica, meanwhile, is also inordinately staffed by KCL War Studies graduates. Together, These two groups pump out highly publicized intelligence reports warning of nefarious actions committed by Russia or other official enemy states, all while quietly being funded by the U.S. national security state themselves.
I just want to point.
Go ahead.
I just want to interject quick. There was one time where I went on a Jordan Sheridan Patreon only Zoom call,
Mm-hmm.
and I asked him specifically about Elliot Higgins, and he was like, and I'm like, you do know that he's funded by Bellingcat and all these war. He's like, no, as far as I'm concerned, Elliot's like a pretty established like journalist, and he's 100% serious. He has no fucking clue. He has no idea about his background. This is Jordan Sheridan, a quote unquote. He's a journalist.
No.
He's a quote unquote.
But
he doesn't know anything about this. He doesn't know. He just erases it from his mind and just whatever
What
Jimmy Dore
the
that week.
fuck?
Yeah. I wish I didn't get a recording of that, man. Dude, it was insane.
Yep.
He legitimately does not know anything about Elliot Higgins. He thinks he's just a fine journalist.
Yeah, we'll get you set up for round 2 to do that. Jimmy Dore.
Jimmy Dore. Jimmy Dore.
But anyway,
listen, all the problems on the left are Jimmy Dore's fault. Everything.
You forget it's Susan Sarandon.
I know, but these characters are so divisive that like they literally cause all the problems. You notice that?
Mm-hmm. Yep. All I've seen is division here lately. That's it.
All it is. That's all it is.
Mm-hmm.
I see two camps on the left. I see people who are sympathetic to Jimmy Dore's message, and then people who fucking hate him and anyone who says anything positive about it.
Yep.
It's literally that's basically it.
McLeod brings up the state-backed nexus. Department of War Studies publishes similar work to Grafika. Indeed, its faculty was crucial in propagating the idea of Russian interference in American elections, being the source of many of the most far-reaching claims about Moscow's influence in American society. Reports published by the department accuse Russia of carrying out a campaign of information psychological warfare and advise that military spending should be increased and that NATO must re-up its commitment to countering Russia. Professor Thomas Ridd even testified before the Senate Select Committee on Intelligence on the dark art of Russian meddling and condemned WikiLeaks and alternative media journalists as unwitting agents of disinformation. Putin is not he who must not be named. I want to be very clear.
Find the connection between WikiLeaks and Putin, really, please.
And the dark arts. Like look, Rasputin just was real handsome.
Dark arts.
All right.
Look at that. They have to call it the dark arts because they have to draw attention away from American propaganda.
And they also know Americans only understand Harry Potter.
Twilight.
Yes. Yeah. So many of the organizations detailed above were also identified as proposed members of a Western government-aligned counter-propaganda nexus hoping to be established by the Expose network. Expose was allegedly a secret UK government-funded initiative that would have brought together journalists and state operatives in an alliance to shape public discourse in a manner more conducive to the priorities of Western governments. So a chart showing the leadership structure of the Expose network published as part of the Integrity Initiative leak, which I have that chart here. So we start up here with the advisory panel. We got Neville Bolt at King's College. We got Peter Permarantsev, who's a consultant, Militia Pesek, right? Graham Brokey, Ben Nemo, Jessica Aro, right? They come over to the project board of Emil Khan, Lewis Broke, and Chris Donnelly, right? We've seen a few of those names before. But, and it just goes like that far down to like short-term technical assistance down here, right? Like, and look, Chris Donnelly again for the different disinformation specialist, right? And then the rapid response function, which is, I imagine, bot farms, but anyway, like, I mean, there's a ton to be recruited. Account executive. I like this is all charted out, all nicer people. But anyway, The Department of War Studies, Dr. Never Bolt, was on the organization's preliminary advisory panel, along Graham Brokey of the Atlantic Council, who's a NATO think tank, and Ben Nemo, former NATO press officer and executive directors of investigations for Graphica, and Facebook's current head of intelligence. Training support, meanwhile, will be provided by individuals from who? Everybody? Who's sending that? Yay! Yay, Bellingcat! In the past, Mint Press has been detailing how much of the public sphere, from social media organizations like Facebook, Twitter, and TikTok, to big search engines such as Google, to think tanks and fact-checking organizations, are quietly much more closely linked to the national security state than first meets the eye. The Department of War Studies at King's College London, is an important part of the state-based nexus. It is a one-stop shop for training many of the spies, think tank employees, journalists, and supposedly independent intelligence investigators who have been at the forefront of the new information war. So,
and I'm sure many of these people that you listed are in some way kind of responsible for the people that we kind of know in this space too.
Yes. Well, Elliot Higgins, at least one of them. So, put simply, one department staffed by former and current military officers is training the people producing the news, the ones manipulating it, and the ones who are in charge of sorting fact from fiction and pinpointing disinformation. It is quite the system. All the while, they continually warn of the threat of foreign state-backed influence operations. To be clear, Kremlin propaganda is real, but its reach is decidedly minor in comparison to the massive disinformation campaigns being launched by the Western National Security State, and the Department of War Studies is a key part of this information war. A lot of projection from the U.S. is what it sounds like. I mean, we mentioned the Atlantic Council earlier. You know, we know a few of the people we were talking about in the space came from there, right? You know, and do a show with active members of the Atlantic Council. You know, people should go look up who we're talking about. There's a lovely article that I know almost all of us have, you know, been a part of, you know, on our Substack. If you go find that in the doobly-doo, that indienews.network will have linked to our Substacks. They should go find that. It's on Breaking Points. People should go look that up. And I'm sure there's a ton of more stuff to uncover there with them as well. You know, that was pretty much it, right? Yep, cool. Closing thoughts so far on that? Anything?
I mean, I think this is really nothing new to us, but it's the idea that, and it's not just them. Like, obviously, we talked about Saga and Jetty in connection with the Hudson Institute, which is very similar to this, you know, based on what we reported on, you know, with Breaking Points or whatever. But again, as I said, it's just the idea of like, these are people who are trained, who are meant to kind of supervise the information that is going out to us.
Yeah.
You know, intentionally or not, to control certain narratives that we see and read. And as I said, you know, the idea, like, I'm sure a lot of these people are also in effect with certain personalities that we also see on the left. Yeah. That are also putting out narratives, you know, to steer clear of us, you know, from actually organizing or actually pushing for any true radical change in this country and throughout the world. So it's just kind of like, I think we've been known this, but I think the idea that like there's an actual school, like other than like think tanks that purposely are like producing people who are essentially in charge of this stuff, you know, it's not surprising, but the idea, but yeah, it's like now we have a name of a school that actually like does this on the real.
Yeah, it's like we put some pieces together and okay, here's one of them. Like, let alone all the other ones in the US that constantly pull and, you know, whatever. You know, and there's tons of psyops happening everywhere on the internet. So, you know, Kelly M in closing asks Misty in closing.
We're fucked.
Yeah.
So propaganda has existed since like probably the beginning of time, but I really think that like we live in this new sort of era where they've become so effective at the flow, controlling the flow of information that it's like nearly like impossible to decipher between what's real and what's not at this point.
No, because
I'm really trying to see, like, analyze, like, see if there's like any sort of like way out of this. If there's like any way that we could kind of like really see through. I think that's like why we kind of like put a lot of focus on independent networks.
Very much so. You know, and even then they've made it so difficult to be an independent like news source, right? Especially when all of the places that you can publish your work independently are controlled by the same people that control the narrative.
By actual think tank. These people are bred and raised in war crime school, the school of war crimes.
Right.
Yeah.
Like,
so
I'm thinking like Pete Buttigieg, you know, like possibly AOC.
Yeah,
like,
well,
obviously she's not
already ties to Langley with her, from what I've heard.
So it's just, the idea is not just,
I think Richie talked about it, didn't he?
I believe so. But so it's not just like at King's College. It's just like you can think of other colleges, you know, in America that may not necessarily have a Department of War Studies.
Yes.
But having people like these who are essentially our professors.
Right.
And are kind of like giving the talking points to their students to kind of think in a
classically
certain way.
Gloria Steinem, if I remember correctly. You know, speaking of Richie.
Unity.
But
who are these people?
Everyone's favorite artist ripoff machine, Spotify, decides to censor Palestine. At least pro-Palestinian artists. You hear about this at all, Colin?
Nope.
So Alan McLeod put this out June 12th over at Mint Press. Shadowy Israel-linked group attempts to censor pro-Palestinian Spotify artists, right? So, a shadowy Israel-linked pressure group is attempting to remove artists supporting Palestinian liberation from Spotify. We Believe in Israel, an outgrowth of the British Israel Communications and Research Center, aka BICOM, is lobbying both the UK government and the popular music streaming platform in their efforts to censor a range of artists, including Mint Press News' Low Key. Studying these organizations' key figures, Mint Press can reveal that the lobby group may have sympathetic ears in key positions in both. Earlier this year, following a long campaign from We Believe in Israel, Spotify removed a host of Arabic language songs containing incendiary lyrics toward the state of Israel. In a press release, the group welcomed the decision, but made clear that they saw this as only the first step in a much wider campaign of censorship. It's good news that Spotify have finally listened to public disgust about hosting clearly anti-Semitic content, which contravenes their own content policies, including directly inciting violence against Israelis, said the group's director, Luke Akehurst, the notorious Labor Party operative. Now we need them to look at why they're hosting explicitly anti-Semitic and conspiratorial songs by Low Key and Ambassador MC, he added, defaming both artists simultaneously while clearly sending a signal that they were next. This is that same Labor Party operative that claimed Corbyn was anti-Semitic, yes?
Yes.
So, it was also widely reported last month that We Believe in Israel was behind Spotify's decision to remove Palestinian pop star Mohammed Asaf's My Blood is Palestinian from its platform. However, it later transpired that the reason the 2012 Arab Idol winner's music disappeared was a contractual dispute between his record label and the streaming service. We Believe in Israel, who have conceded that they work closely with the Israeli embassy but insist they had not directed by them, had been campaigning for some time to cleanse Spotify. Last year, it launched a petition which gained 4,000 signatures and directly lobbied the British Ministry of Digital Culture, Media, and Sport on the matter. Right. So we don't work with them, but we definitely do everything we can for them. So here it is. This is an excerpt from Ofcom's 2017 broadcast and on-demand bulletin, which states, The Israeli embassy, Shai Massat, the Young Fabians, and Labor Friends of Israel were amongst those who did not respond to our findings. We Believe in Israel did confirm that while it was not controlled financially or otherwise by Israel, it worked with a range of stakeholders, including the Israeli embassy. Right? You know, we didn't do it, but we take their money. The Jewish labor movement denies that it has worked closely with Shai Massat. So, leading the drive was We Believe in Israel's campaign manager, Rachel Blaine. Spotify must take down songs promoting hatred, she thundered in an article in the Times of Israel. Before conflict of interest much? Before joining We Believe in Israel, Blaine has worked at the Zionist Federation,
Okay.
British Board of Deputies, and at an unnamed embassy in London. I wonder which embassy that was, Collin. Given her professional background, it is likely that the embassy was the Israeli one. Oh yeah, that place. Allegedly. I'm sorry. Allegedly.
I'm in danger.
Allegedly. Uh-huh. I love that though. It's like, oh, our main campaign manager definitely worked at that fucking embassy, but you know, we never had anything to do with that embassy. Okay. So the president of Loki's music is particularly offensive. Ackhurst complained, it's not, I've heard it, it's great. Claiming that his songs were a direct incitement of violence toward Jews and Israelis. Beyond a few lyrics, which, even if uncharitably interpreted, hardly rose to the level, he provided little by way of evidence. Telling, however, was the fact that We Believe in Israel singled out songs of Palestinian liberation for particular vitriol, especially Loki's Long Live Palestine and Long Live Palestine Part 2. And Ambassador MC's Free Palestine. God, that sounds like they're inciting some violence, huh? You know, freedom and living and long life and okay. The campaign failed spectacularly, however, as it elicited a huge worldwide pushback, a counter-petition demanding Spotify not buckle to the Israeli lobby's pressure, draw tens of thousands of signatures, including from hundreds of the world's leading intellectuals, artists, and musicians. This included dozens of the most prominent Jewish individuals in the creative industries. Ackhurst seemed dumbfounded by the failure of his crusade. The reason for targeting Loki in the first place was also the reason why the plan ultimately backfired. As a hip-hop artist recognized as one of the most gifted of his generation, Loki has amassed a worldwide following of tens of millions of people. His relentless social critique and his steadfast support of Palestinian rights may have effectively banned him from mainstream airways, but has gained him enormous respect from critics, musicians, and fans alike. His 3 Long Live Palestine tracks had become anthems within the pro-Palestine movement, and his skill has seen him collaborate with some of the most notable names in the music industry. As far back as 2011, the Jewish Chronicle noted that his mere existence was a, quote, potential nightmare for the state of Israel. Thus, when pro-Israel groups attempted to cancel him, they met with global pushback. We Believe in Israel's Spotify lobbying attempts intensified last June at the same time as the music giants announced its Safety Advisory Council, a body that would decide what content to remove from the platform on security and welfare grounds. Managing to secure 2 seats on the council was the Institute for Strategic Dialogue, a London-based think tank with close links to the pro-Israel lobby, including We Believe in Israel itself. Founded in 2006, the Institute for Strategic Dialogue brands itself as a body dedicated to analyzing and combating all forms of political and religious extremism. However, scrutinizing its founders, key staff, output, and funding sources suggest they may have ulterior motives. You think?
I think.
The organization was co-founded by socialite and media mogul Baron Weidenfeld, serving as political advisor and chief of cabinet to Chaim Weizmann, the first president of Israel. Weidenfeld spent his entire adult life relentlessly pursuing the Jewish state expansion. This included launching a global PR campaign to convince the world that West Jerusalem should belong to Israel. He was also a trustee of the Jerusalem Foundation, an organization that builds illegal Israeli settlements. Upon his death in 2016, he was rewarded with a burial at the ancient Mount of Olives in Jerusalem, one of the holiest sites in Judaism, an honor that very few figures receive. Institute for Strategic Dialogue co-founder Baron Weinfeld on the left with the notorious war criminal Henry Kissinger at the International Bertelsmann Forum in 06. So they're good buddies, them. The Institute for Strategic Dialogue's current chair is Michael Lewis. Before joining the ISD, Lewis was director of BICOM, the group that birthed We Believe in Israel. Thus, BICOM/We Believe in Israel is now petitioning the Spotify Council, while their former directive is now in charge of an organization that sits on the panel that will help decide whether to ban pro-Palestinian artists. The Institute for Strategic Dialogue is funded by a host of NATO governments, including Germany, the UK, Denmark, Canada, Finland, and the Netherlands. It is also bankrolled by the National Democratic Institute and the International Republican Institute. Subsidies the notorious National Endowment for Democracy. Yay, the NED's here, Collin. The CIA front organization. Great. The CIA front organization set up by the Reagan administration to carry out many of the agency's most controversial and illegal activities. Do you think that on lady is going to come after Mint Press News McLeod for calling them a CIA front, or is it just Blumenthal and Rubenstein, you think? Attorneys at law. Spying and surveillance are not unknown to the ISD. Earlier this year, the Electronic Intifada revealed that the British government had secretly paid the Institute to help carry out a spying operation on Palestinian citizens. Its ranks are filled with national security state-adjacent figures, former fellows of NATO's Atlantic Council, and individuals who helped advise on the occupation of Afghanistan. Mint Press also found at least a dozen ISD employees who received postgraduate degrees from the Department of War Studies at King's College. Collin, you remember that, don't you?
Yes, we do.
Yes, we did. That's another banger of an Alan McLeod article about King's College and their War Studies department. Go back and check. I think what do we call that? Spy school. I think if you go back and look that up. Yeah. The university department infamous for training the West's top spies, including British MI5 and MI6 agents, as well as CIA operatives. Therefore, while it presents itself as a counter-extremism organization, there are grounds to suspect that, to the Institute for Strategic Dialogue, any form of Palestinian resistance to Israeli occupation might be considered extremist. That Spotify has allotted 2 spots on its council to the organization is cause for concern. In lobbying the UK Department of Digital Culture, Media and Sport, We Believe in Israel is likely pushing at an open door considering some of the key figures in the organization. Chief amongst these is the Secretary of State herself, Lucy Fraser. Before entering politics and joining the Conservative cabinet, Fraser had worked at the Israeli Ministry of Justice, a post suggesting that she may be sympathetic to We Believe in Israel's goals. You think? The Conservative Party in general has been extremely pro-Israel. The Conservative Friends of Israel, the party's principal pro-Israel association, once noted that the remarkable 80% of Tory MPs were members. The organization works alongside with other pro-Israeli groups, including We Believe in Israel. The aforementioned Rachel Blaine left We Believe in Israel in 2022 and is now the CFI's Public Affairs Director. It's just a big revolving door over here, Collin. Like, all this shit is. The CFI is a highly influential organization. In 2012, it helped the future Prime Minister Boris Johnson win re-election as mayor of London, organizing parts of his campaign, while it managed to block Johnson appointing Alan Duncan to the position of Middle East minister due to the latter's support for Palestinian rights. A 2020 Run report from Declassified UK found that 1/3 of the Tory cabinet, including Johnson himself, were funded by Israel or by pro-Israel groups. Public image rapidly deteriorating, Israel and its supporters have repeatedly attempted to remove opposing voices from the airwaves of the internet. Former Israeli Justice Minister Aliyat Shaked, isn't that how you do it? Shaked boasted that she worked closely with Facebook to censor Palestinian voices, with the Silicon Valley Corporation agreeing to take down around 95% of the content she asked them to. Today, former Director General for the Ministry of Justice, Amy Palmore, sits on Facebook's Advisory Council, the board ultimately responsible for content moderation of the world's largest news and social media platform. At key moments of worldwide political attention, Palestinians have found their Instagram accounts blocked and still cannot use services such as PayPal. The organizing culture boycotts of Israel because of its systematic oppression of its indigenous population find themselves attacked and smeared. Low-key is no stranger to this, having had gigs and speaking opportunities canceled. Nevertheless, Western support for Israel and its crimes is waning as the country loses the battle for public opinion. Faced with this reality, its supporters are increasingly turning to nefarious means to shut critics up. While Spotify has so far stood up to attempts to ban artists like Low-key and Ambassador MC, it should be clear that big media organizations are not global town squares, but corporate Western platforms that will always be ambivalent, at best, to third world struggles and movements to effect change. This is especially true when groups like the Institute for Strategic Dialogue are placed in charge of moderating them. So, thoughts, Care Bear?
More of the story, don't fuck with hip-hop.
Yeah, I would say so. But they're gonna try. It's just,
but well, not hip hop. But I was somewhat half kidding. But like, this, we should actually get DJ Joe Nice or somebody like, because I know he's very much a music hound.
You probably reach out to Low-key too.
Yeah, but I think this is not new.
No,
this
has been happening.
This has been happening. Think of like Bob Marley in the 60s. In the 70s, just the idea of speaking in terms of liberation, especially among working class and especially among people of color, has always been targeted in music. So this shouldn't be a huge surprise. I mean, we report on Israel Palestine all the time. So this really isn't a surprise. I just want people to understand that this is nothing new.
No.
That this has been going on.
Talk to 2 Live Crew.
Decades, but it's just
like,
more or less now that there actually are lobbyists now that are up in the ante, so that
are
trying to
covered
these
in spooky ectoplasm, like National Endowment for Democracy is here, the War fucking Department of King's Cross College is here, which is like MI6 CIA. Like training program. It's just, and now they're heads of Facebook and removing 95% of the content that these Israeli groups are asking them to. Like,
but this should be a warning for, I think of someone like Jesse, because he has political.
Some spicy content on Spotify. People should check it out.
Like, not to say like his stuff will not be removed from Spotify for similar reasons.
Yeah.
So this is just another version of censorship that is bullshit, but it should make. But I think this is a way of kind of making music artists kind of not talk about any type of liberation, especially more in the political realm, that could lead to coalescing and actual like movement changing in their music. And so that's very dangerous to kind of think about, because it's going to affect a lot of artists. Now, I think the thing, again, as the article stated with Low-key, because he's so popular that his fans basically
stuck up for
him.
Yeah.
I've never heard of him before, but actually now that
he's
you
done
read it, I'm actually
great stuff on Assange. He's up there. I dig him.
Yeah, I think we should try and get him on the show to maybe
him and KRS-One. We can just call
Yeah.
KRS-One real quick and have him show up for this.
Yeah. So, look, like you guys know us, we'll talk to mostly everybody.
Yeah.
But but it would be also interesting to see what. I should connect with DJ Joe Nice pretty soon because I know he's touring, but I think there'll be like there'll be points over the summer where I think he'll be like in the country. So we'll try and see if we can get him to talk more about like this type of censorship.
Yeah.
In music in general. But you know, but I think because Loki is a big artist, I think relatively in Palestine, and I think throughout the world, that he, not to say he got away with it, but he had the backing of his fans to actually make noise about it. But what's to say like a smaller artist would just be taken out? It's like just like YouTube, you know. The larger channels, especially in this space, who kind of kowtow to the establishment, generally do fine. And then channels like us are the ones that get struck down, if not straight up removed from the platform, because we talk about things that are more counter to establishment talking points. So same thing. So yeah, I definitely sympathize with it.
Yeah.
But you know, but I think that's why this is just more of a reason why I think, just to kind of speak to our audience a little bit, how much we're really thankful for you guys. That like you're very small but mighty in terms of, you know, how you've advocated for us, how you share our content, how you promote our content, and that we're able to kind of get a bigger footing. We're still a baby channel, but you know, you guys are helping us be elevated in the space more due to you guys' efforts and support and love for us. So we definitely don't take you guys for granted in terms of that, but this is part of the reason why, especially if you believe what we're doing, why we need your support. So
great article by Alan McLeod. We hopefully can reach out to him too. I think his time zones are hard.
Who are these people?
So this is from the CPJ about digital safety, right? So it's particularly for journalists. So I feel like it's pertinent to us. But so they start with reporting can involve researching and contacting people who pose a threat to you or the media outlet you work for. Using personal devices and accounts to do so could expose you to harassment and identity theft. Since using your phone or the internet can reveal information about you and your location, such as your email or internet protocol address, take steps to protect yourself before reaching out. So they told her, like, search your subject to see they have a history of harassing journalists who report on them and whether the risks are digital, physical, or both. Review safe online research practices below before you visit a subject's website or other digital platform. Oh my God, it was so cute. Look at the handsome boy. It looks so good. It's way bigger than I thought it was.
Yeah, it's big.
It's legit.
I love it.
It's fucking great. But
I love it.
So discuss your story and its risks with your editor, who, if you're lucky enough to have one of those, to find out what support will be available as you investigate and publish it. Carry out a risk assessment and review and update it regularly throughout your investigation. Weigh the risk of investigating the story against the reward. Is the risk significant? Purchase a separate phone and SIM card or virtual phone number from a service like Google Voice for the story. Review the safer communication section below. But yeah, so for very sensitive stories, consider using Tails, a portable, secure operating system for any computer. Seek help from a security specialist to set it up. Imagine someone searching online for data that they can use to harass, intimidate, or discredit you. Review your profiles to see what is in the public domain and remove what you can as detailed below. Be aware that sources may keep or record communications with you, including phone calls, and could make them public, present them out of context, or otherwise manipulate them. Step up security measures while initiating contact with sources, and immediately after publishing will you be most at risk. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure you've dealt with like half of these things. And like, I don't even think of you as like, you're an activist more than you are a journalist.
I'm not a journalist. I say that all the time. I'm not a journalist. People try to label me as that. and it makes me hugely uncomfortable because I have a great deal of respect for the profession of journalism.
Right.
And that's not me. I'm not a journalist. I mean, at best, I'm a commentator. I only started doing shows so I could highlight my activism. That was the whole reason why I started doing shows. So I'm an activist. So yeah, I refuse to be labeled as a journalist. People try all the time and I'm like, nope, reject it. Openly reject it. No, thank you.
So
I mean,
they tell you to.
That's nice. It's kind when people say that, but it's not true. It's not accurate. It's not who I am.
Right. So they told you to use a VPN when carrying out research, and especially downloading documents. Hide your IP, right? They also told you to use the Tor browser, which was created by our lovely military. The most secure way to browse the internet anonymously, available right now for your most sensitive research. Digital security specialists can provide assistance if you need. Confirm websites you visited are encrypted. Use uBlock Origin for Chrome or Firefox to protect yourself from advertising that could be used to track you, or install malware. And the uMatrix plugin for Chrome or Firefox to control how your browser communicates with the sites you visit. Create dedicated social media accounts and use them in place of personal accounts when joining groups run by people who might wish you harm. Use a service like Twilio or Google Voice in the US to mask your real phone number when setting them up. Revealing your name or other identifying data, such as your date of birth, on these accounts increase the risk of harassment. And many journalists use generic photos appropriate for the group they are connecting with instead of their own. Use a throwaway email address. When registering with sites that could put you at risk, when interacting, be extra careful not to give away personal information or click on links that might be compromised. Even that one. I know there's free singles in your area, but find them elsewhere.
I mean, I'm not a journalist, but I still have to deal with all of this. Like, I have legitimate stalkers. I have people who legitimately like post pictures of my house online.
Ridiculous.
Yeah, it's fucking crazy, dude. I'm some chick from Ohio, y'all. Like, if you're spending that much energy on me, you have issues. I have no power or influence or money. I'm nobody. Like, I'm fully aware well of that. You should be. Go after people who have actual influence over your life, not me. It's really strange.
So they even go over like how to create a throwaway email. I hope people can figure that out.
A throwaway email.
And multiple.
Yes.
Like, erase all information and delete the account when you have finished research. That's probably smart as well. Don't include personal info. Couldn't agree more. So they also talk about just trying to secure your data. So turn on two-factor on like everything. Create long, unique passwords for each account. Prioritize protecting data that can be used to locate you, especially your address. What else they got? Set regular calendar reminders to look yourself up online. I don't know if I could handle that.
Nope.
And do so on a range of search engines using private or incognito mode. Note anything you could make private or remove. I think someone, I don't know if I think Kit was having troubles recently too. But
was he?
Yeah, I think. So sign up for Google Alerts to be notified when others use your name online, including common misspellings of your name, your address, and any other personal information. So you're gonna have to look up all the Mindys too. That's gonna be a while.
There's a lot. I have a lot of parody accounts of me. I don't know how many it's up to because I genuinely try not to space. I used to give a lot of energy and stuff to trolls. I don't anymore. And the only time I ever see anything anymore is if somebody sends it to me, and just don't send it to me. I don't care. Like, I really don't care what these people have to say about me. I don't think about them in any way, shape, form, or fashion. They are obsessed. Like, there are some of them that their entire timeline is like 87% dedicated to screenshots of my tweets. That's ridiculous. You know what I mean? They're obsessed, and it's not something I care to think about. I just don't give a shit. I really don't.
So make content private on sites and accounts you own. Ask family and friends to remove information from sites and accounts they control. Be aware that it may not be possible to remove data stored on sites owned by third parties, such as public databases, and that deleted data may live on screenshots or internet archives such as the Wayback Machine. Ask Google Maps, Apple Maps, and other companies to blur or remove your home or other identifying information. Ask Google Search to remove links from public search results, which can include links detailing personal data such as your home address. Results on other search engines will not be affected. Contact the creator of the public database, normally a government body, to see if your information can be removed or made private. Laws about this differ by country. Service exists to help you remove your information from sites which trade data for advertising and other purposes, though it may take a month to see the effects. One example, Delete Me, owned by the company Abine, operates in the US and some other countries. So create separate accounts.
And you know what sucks? What sucks is I've learned in recent months that even people who I knew didn't really like me that much, but I didn't think were like that, like not crazy, but that weird about it. Like because so much of your personal information is available online, regardless of what you do about it, it's really difficult to get stuff like removed from, like my family's names have been doxxed. And like the city that they live in has been doxxed by people who are like in ally circles.
Yeah.
And that sucks. Like that sucks to know that it's not just people who obsessively hate troll me. It's people who you know, I'm friends with people who are friends with them. And I wasn't under any impression that they liked me. I didn't think that these people did, but I didn't know that it went to that level where they were like willing to like dox my family members.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it sucks. Like you really, whatever you can do to protect yourself. I'm going through that process now. I'm trying to figure out all the best ways that I can get stuff taken down as much as possible. I mean, I have kids, y'all.
Yeah.
I don't want people knowing where I live. Like that's, there are crazy people out there who will do bad things. So yeah, it sucks.
So, I mean, it goes, you know, create separate accounts for work and personal, check privacy settings regularly, remove personal information such as your date of birth, turn off your location and any geotagging functions that show where you were for specific posts. The information could put you or others at risk. Verify your accounts. Move conversations to Signal or WhatsApp or Telegram. I'll probably also add that, although even that is sketch sometimes.
Yeah.
So rather than direct messaging, and only use the dedicated phone and SIM card you have bought for your research. Think about what you post. Don't share pictures of your office, hotel, or something else that gives away your location, especially if you're doing journalism in a country where there's war.
Yeah.
Like,
I go out of town, you won't know it. I won't
Guys,
tell you. I'm not telling anybody on Twitter.
They put a missile into the hotel where RT journalists were at. Like that's.
I just don't want people to know I'm not at home. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like I don't want people to know where I am if I'm not at home. And I don't, you know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah, for sure. So think about what you post. Don't share pictures. Right. Ask family and friends to avoid posting information. That's a hard one because like sometimes they're just not paying attention, you know? So,
yeah.
But anyway, right. They talk about
those conversations.
Buying a separate SIM card, you know, using a different like phone number and using only like throwaway emails. Like keep photos
Get a
of
burner
yourself
phone if you're
off
like
the
a
device.
legitimate journalist, get a burner. And use that for a story. If you're doing a particular story and you need something to contact sources on or whatever, get a burner phone.
Yep. Keep it airlocked as much as possible. Even only turn on mobile like networks when you like absolutely require
Keep it turned off unless you are using it.
Yeah, legit. So use apps with end-to-end encrypted messaging such as Signal or WhatsApp to communicate, since calls and SMS messages exchanged over mobile phone networks are not encrypted, and governments and others can access the content. So WhatsApp, be aware a government could subpoena WhatsApp to access the metadata, but Signal stores much less. Secure Signal or WhatsApp accounts with advanced security features if needed, such as screen lock, registration lock, disappearing messages, and view once photos and videos. Use
Can I just
wired.
say something about Signal though?
Yes.
All of those, not as secure as you think. Be very mindful
Absolutely.
of that. Nothing is foolproof. Nothing is foolproof. Just
Use
be mindful of that.
Use wire to communicate where possible, since you could sign up without a phone number. Yep. Create a plan to back up and delete content stored in the apps, right? And after publication, back up anything you need, then delete everything stored in the accounts and then the accounts themselves. Disconnect the phone number and factory reset the phone. Whedon Critical Thinking says take the battery out of the phone if that's an option. So then throw it in the ocean and you should be good. But like, I mean, we laugh, but use Danger Zone to scan files received from a source for malware and covert, convert potentially dangerous PDFs, images, and other documents into safe PDFs. Remember that almost anything you do on a device leaves a trace, and IT experts can recover deleted content even if you have specialized software to scrub your computer. Send documents under 100 megabytes via Signal or other end-to-end encrypted service. Send documents over 100 megabytes using Onion Share. Be aware that metadata contained in documents, files, and messaging apps, such as the time and date a document was sent, is not always encrypted and could help someone identify both you and your source. But yeah, I just thought it would be a good thing to look through that for people at home.
Protect your sources.
Especially,
Protect your sources. And if you are a source or a whistleblower, this is my public service announcement to stay the entire fuck away from the Intercept. Please stay away from the Intercept.
Would be smart.
I don't know. Is there a worse record for burning sources than the Intercept? 3, and then they hired a guy that burned a 4th. That's a pretty terrible record.
Yeah, I agree. Craziness. But yeah, we can keep Deep Throat a secret for years.
Yeah.
Like, what?
Who are these people?
Press News, they're looking at everything. Alan McLeod sitting in the shadows, waiting to find a story, has wrote this recently, and I thought I'd pull it, and we're doing pretty good on time. We got 30 minutes left. So TikTok, Chinese Trojan horse, is run by State Department officials. Who would have thunk? Jesse, who would have thunk that it's actually deep state stuff? So amid a national hysteria claiming the popular video sharing app is a Chinese Trojan horse, a Minpress News investigation has found dozens of ex-U.S. State Department officials working in key positions at TikTok. Many more individuals who, with backgrounds in the FBI, CIA, and other departments of the national security state, also hold influential posts at the social media giant, affecting the content that over 1 billion users see, while American politicians demand the app be banned on national security grounds, try to force through an Internet Surveillance Act that would turn the country into an Orwellian state, make clueless statements about how TikTok is dangerous because it connects to your Wi-Fi. It is possible that TikTok is already much closer to Washington than it is to Beijing. So, for quite some time, TikTok has been recruiting former State Department officials to run its ops. The company's head of data public policy for Europe, for example, is Jade Nestor. Before being recruited for that individual role, Nestor was a senior official in Washington, serving for 4 years as the State Department's Director of Internet Public Policy. So that's where we're starting from, Alan.
Sorry, Jade Nestor totally sounds like some kind of like rare exotic bird that David Attenborough should be telling me about, that they like finally got footage of the Jade Nestor.
It sounds like someone just randomized their Pandarian's name, you know? That's a deep cut for Jesse to laugh at. I know Jesse spent some time in that area. He's like, oh, this was a terrible expansion. So serving for 4 years as the State Department's Director of Internet Public Policy. Anyway, Mariola Janik, meanwhile, left a long and fruitful career in the government to work for TikTok, starting out at the Bureau of Western Hemisphere Affairs. Janik became a career diplomat in the State Department before moving to the Department of Homeland Security. In September, however, she left the government to immediately take up the position of TikTok's Trusted Safety Program Manager, a job that will inevitably include removing content and reshaping algorithms. Who would have thought?
You got no friends in Washington, D.C. Your enemy is laughing at you.
Like, well, there is no suggestion that Janik is anything other than a model employee, says Alan McLeod. The fact that a U.S. government agent walked into such an influential position at the social media giant should be a cause for concern. If, for instance, a high Chinese official was hired to influence what the U.S. public saw on their social media feeds, it would likely be the centerpiece of the TikTok furor currently gripping Washington. So, Janik is not the only former security official working on TikTok's trust and safety team. However, between 2008 and 2021, Christian Cardona enjoyed a distinguished career at the State Department, serving in Poland, Turkey, and Oman, and was in the thick of the U.S. interventionism in the Middle East between 2012 and 2013. He was an assistant to the U.S. ambassador in Kabul. He later left that role to become the political and military affairs manager for Iran. In the summer of 21, he went straight from the top State Department job to become product policy manager for trust and safety at TikTok, a position that on paper he appears completely unqualified for. Earlier this year, Cardona left the company. Another influential individual at TikTok is recruiting coordinator Katrina Valasaneros, new dinosaur, yet before she was choosing whom the company hires, Valasaneros worked at the State Department's office. See, that has to be a lizard person in disguise. It's Valasaneros? Like, really? You just expect her to keep her hands up like this all day? Like, nah. She worked in the State Department's Office of Human Rights and Humanitarian Affairs. The State Departments. That's like an oxymoron of a organization to have for them. Until 21, she was part of Army Cyber Command, the U.S. military unit that oversees cyber attacks and information warfare online. Could you imagine, Jesse, if a Chinese member that oversaw the cyber attack and information warfare of the Chinese Republican Army worked at TikTok? People might
We'd be trying to ban it.
Like,
wow.
So,
man.
Other TikTok employees with long history in the U.S. national security state include Brad Earman, a global head of criminal and civil investigations, who spent 21 years as a special agent in the Air Force Office of Special Investigations and also worked as a program manager for anti-terrorism in the State Department. And Ryan Walsh, the only normal name in this, escalations management led for trust and safety at TikTok, who until 2020 was the government's senior advisor for digital strategy, the central part of Walsh's State Department job. His own resume notes was, quote, advancing supportive narratives for the U.S. and NATO online. Hey, he's just a NATO fucking dupe. Okay. Advancing supportive narratives. Jesus Christ. Here he is. Here's Ryan Walsh. Risking rapid response
team at TikTok.
Yes, please.
Everybody convene in my office immediately. We've got TikTok emergency.
Ryan Walsh. Oh, God. He
Get me Brad Earman right now.
Get Brad Earman.
Earman, get into my office.
And that lizard lady, Velociraptor.
Fuck. I love how we've telephone gamed Villa Cisneros into Velociraptor in like 2 moves. It was just seamless.
Yeah. So here's this fucking man's quote experience. Escalations management lead, U.S. trust and safety, right? So we got intelligence director for digital platforms, right, at Storyful. And if we just scroll down a little more, the U.S. Department of State. Right? So we got senior advisor for digital strategy, Bureau of Global Public Affairs, right? Residency fellow for counter disinformation, U.S. Advisory Commission on Public Diplomacy, right? Could you imagine the type of diplomacy Patrick Stewart would do if you had a counter disinformation fellow. Like Walsh, therefore, is illustrative of a broader wave of individuals who have moved from governments attempting to manipulate the global town square to private companies where they entrusted to keep the public safe from exactly the sort of state-backed influence operations their former colleagues are orchestrating. In short, then, this system, whereby recently retired government officials decide what the world sees and does not see online, is one step removed from state censorship on a global level. So, for all the talk of digital influence operations emanating from Russia or other U.S. adversaries, the United States is surely the worst offender when it comes to manipulating public opinion online. It is known, for instance, the Department of Defense employs an army of at least 60,000 people whose job is to influence the public sphere, most of whom serve as, quote, keyboard warriors and trolls aiming to promote U.S. government or military interests. And earlier this year, the Twitter files exposed how social media giants collaborated with the Pentagon to help run online influence operations and fake news campaigns aimed at regime change in the Middle East. So, you know about Project Texas? You heard of this?
Yeah.
Influx of State Department officials in TikTok's upper ranks is a consequence of Project Texas, an initiative the company began in 2020 in the hopes of avoiding being banned altogether in the United States. During this time in office, Secretary of State Mike Pompeo led the charge to shut the platform down, frequently labelizing it as a, quote, spying app and a propaganda tool for the CCP. It was widely reported that the U.S. government had forced the sale of TikTok to Walmart and then Microsoft. So, you know, Walden's and then Gates. Should work out. But in the late 2020, as Project Texas began, those deals mysteriously fell through, and the rhetoric about the dangers of TikTok from officials evaporated. Project Texas is a $1.5 billion security operation to move the company's data to Austin. In doing so, it announced that it was partnering with tech giant Oracle, a corporation that, as Mint Press has reported on, is the CIA in all but name. Evidently, Project Texas also secretly included hiring all manner of U.S. national security state personnel to oversee the company's operations, and not just from the State Department. Rebecca Pober, for instance, moved straight from her post in strategy and policy at the Pentagon to become a U.S. policy manager at TikTok. A number of influential TikTok employees are former longtime CIA agents. Alec S., the company's former trust and safety global content integrity policy lead, was previously a leadership analysis at agency headquarters in Langley. That S stands for spook in this case. For almost 9 years before the CIA, she worked for the State Department and U.S. Pacific Command. Casey Getz, meanwhile, spent nearly 11 years at the CIA, rising to become branch chief before later being hired by TikTok to work on data security and security integration. He was also previously director for cybersecurity at the National Security Council at the White House. And according to the resume of TikTok Trust and Safety Manager Bill Patterson, not only was he a CIA targeting analyst until 2020, he is also a currently serving military intelligence officer in the U.S. Army while moonlighting at the social media behemoth. So not even X. Indeed, virtually every branch of the national security state is present at TikTok. Before becoming the company's trust and safety manager, Catherine Grant spent more than 3 years working at the White House before moving to the National Security Council and then the Department of Energy. Her TikTok trust and safety colleague, Victoria McCullough, has a similarly state-heavy background, working 2 years at the Department of Homeland Security before joining Grant at the White House, where she was an associate director in the Office of Public Engagement. And TikTok crisis manager Jim Ammons served for more than 21 years as a unit chief in the FBI. Meanwhile, at the Halls of Injustice, Mint Press study described
Meanwhile,
a NATO to TikTok pipeline, whereby dozens of officials from the military alliance had also been given jobs in key fields within the company. Perhaps the most startling of these hires was Greg Anderson, whose own LinkedIn profile noted that he worked on a psychological operations for NATO immediately before moving to work in social media. So please
psychological operations for NATO.
Please tell me he's a man who stares at goats. Please tell me that's what that means. Former state officials are overwhelmingly being appointed to politically sensitive positions such as security and trusted safety rather than more neural departments like customer service and sales. While this article is not specifically arguing that any of the individuals listed here are unworthy of considerations for their post, taken as a whole, together with dozens of other spooks, spies, and mandarins not profiled here, it is difficult to understand this phenomenon other than as a power play from the U.S. government to try to establish control over one of the world's most popular and fastest growing social media companies. So, Helen McLeod wants to point out the political theater of this. TikTok is an immensely influential medium, shaping how the world understands itself, particularly for younger gens. A 2021 study found that 31% of people aged between 18 and 24 worldwide has used the app in the past week, with 9% using it as a primary source of news. There's no doubt part of the reason U.S. officials are so concerned with it. Last month, TikTok's CEO, Chu Shouzi, was brought before Congress and challenged on his company's connections to the People's Republic of China through TikTok as a subsidiary of Chinese firm ByteDance. It insists it operates as an independent entity and that it never shared any user data with Beijing. Unfortunately, the opportunity to interrogate Chu on more substantive issues was overtaken by political grandstanding from elected officials who seemed not interested in his answers and more concerned with scoring political points or achieving quotable sound bites. Bless you.
Thank you.
Bullshit. Allergic to all this bullshit, dude. I feel you. There was also more than an undertone of xenophobia throughout the events, with Chu on multiple occasions having to remind his questioners that he was not, in fact, Chinese, only for them to ignore him and continue to insinuate that he was. Republican Senator Tom Cotton went further, demanding that Chu be deported and insisting that we can't allow Chinese citizens or anyone affiliated with the Communist Party of China to own one more inch of American soil, a statement that evokes memories of the Chinese Exclusion Act, a racist immigration bill that was fully repudiated in the 1960s. Chu is from Singapore.
Oh my.
So, I mean, that guy definitely knows about him. I'm just saying.
Dear.
You know, we're committed to providing a safe, secure platform that fosters an inclusive place for our amazing, diverse communities to call home. The shame today conversation felt rooted in xenophobia, wrote TikTok COO Vanessa Pappas. Chu was also subjected to bizarre questioning from politicians entirely ignorant of how modern telecommunications work. Congress Richard Hudson asked whether TikTok could access Wi-Fi networks, a question so obvious it left Chu assuming he had misunderstood the question. Meanwhile, Buddy Carter demanded to know where the app utilize users' phone cameras to track dilation in the eyes so that they could market shocking videos more effectively to them. Watching, quote, clueless congresspersons asking boomers questions was hard to watch, concluded tech magazine Futurism. So, 20 years for watching a dance video. Alan McLeod gets in a little bit of the HR 1153, right? So nevertheless, these ignorant politicians are currently legislating an anti-TikTok bill, which mentions nothing about TikTok. The HR 1153, the Data Act, which recently passed the House Foreign Affairs Committee, is almost surreal in one of its implications, wrote the Institute for Reasonable Statecraft. Not only would TikTok and possibly other large Chinese apps like WeChat be banned, but accessing them through using a VPN would become a criminal federal offense and subject to 20 years in prison and a fine of up to $1 million. So, yeah. I mean, and check out our sponsor, NordVPN, for 20% off all this bullshit. The bill also gives the government the power to secretly and permanently spy on any individual it subjects suspects of interacting with foreign adversaries, while it's named those adversaries as including China, Cuba, Venezuela, Iran, Russia, North Korea. It also notes that the list can be changed at any time for any reason. Thus, the bill would blow apart freedom of speech online and implement some of the most draconian, authoritarian internet laws anywhere on the planet, far more strict than even the famously censorious Chinese government. So he talks about spies in our midst. Some of the furor over TikTok's supposed threat has been stoked artificially by its rivals. Facebook, for example, is known to have contracted a PR firm to carry out a nationwide smear campaign against TikTok, presenting the platform as a threat to children and placing articles talking up the dangers of its competitors in the newspapers across the country. Yet Facebook itself has been subjected to the government of TikTok treatment. In 2018, Mark Zuckerberg was hauled before Congress and grilled for hours on the dangers of his platform. Elected officials discussed breaking the company up or even imprisoning Zuckerberg for his role in promoting misinformation. If the goal was to intimidate him into giving up editorial control of the platform, then it may have worked. Only weeks after the inquest, Facebook announced that it was partnering with the Atlantic Council, an arm of NATO, whereby the group would now influence what billions of people saw and did not see in their news feeds. The Atlantic Council has long been among the most hawkish organizations on China and Russia, publishing lurid reports about the extent of the latter's penetration of Western society. It also strongly suspected that the Atlantic Council was involved in the infamous Proper Not Group, a shadowy organization that labeled hundreds of alternative media outlets, including Mint Press News, as likely Russian propaganda. As a result of recent algorithm changes, Facebook traffic to alternative news websites has been completely throttled, as the platform strongly privileges establishment media or conservative outlets. Mint Press, for instance, has lost over 99% of its Facebook traffic for the state. This sort of corporate algorithmic strangulation is far more effective than outright government bans. It achieves virtually the same suppression metrics while provoking far less public outrage. Facebook itself is teaming with agents from the national security state. Aaron Berman, for instance, who leads the team that is ultimately in charge of content moderation for the platform, was until 2019 a high-ranking member of the CIA, writing the president's daily briefings until he jumped ship to Facebook. Right? So another Berman, Deborah, spent nearly a decade as an intelligence analyst. I think that's also what Ray McGovern did, FYI. Another Berman, Deborah, spent nearly a decade as an intelligence analyst at Langley. As a Syria specialist, it's quite possible she was part of the CIA's ongoing dirty war against the country, whereby the agency funded, trained, and maintained an army of jihadists to overthrow the Assad government. In early 2022, however, she left the CIA to take up a position managing Meta's trust and safety team. So, Bermans are just two of dozens of CIA agents now running Facebook's worldwide operations that were profiled in a previous Mint Press investigation titled Meet the Ex-CIA Agents Deciding Facebook's Content Policy, which I do believe we covered. Facebook and TikTok are far from outliers, however. It is sometimes difficult to find a senior Google employee who was not previously a member of the CIA. Twitter has been hiring an alarming number of FBI agents to run its operations, and Reddit mysteriously appointed hawkish Atlantic Council member Jessica Ashew to become its director of operations, despite her having little to no relevant experience, seeing as she is a shoe.
Bless you.
With billions of users worldwide, big social media companies hold vastly more power. I was going to go with like what's on your foot, you know? So influence global public opinion than even the largest of old media empires. The U.S. clearly understands that he who controls the algorithm controls the spice, thus controlling the universe. In decades gone by, the State Department and the CIA spent fortunes creating networks of hundreds of paid informants in newsrooms across America, and even secretly set up hundreds of newspapers and magazines to plant information or misinformation to alter public opinion. Today, however, for the U.S. government, it is much quicker and simpler to place a few operatives into key positions in big tech companies, and they can have a much greater effect. Thus, Americans should not fear that TikTok is some sort of communist Chinese Trojan horse. It is already being run by your local State Department. So that's it. We did it.
Shout out to Ellen McLeod, because that article's killer.
That's really great. He always goes deep. Like you could like cut out like one or two of the CIA agents and still have a great article.
Yeah.
You know?
But yeah, the scope of it. I mean, I remember seeing the one recently that was all the people that Twitter had hired that were ex-CIA and FBI. And again, they're everywhere. They're embedded.
these people?
I just figured you want to look at this guy's face.
Oh God!
But you know,
frightening,
isn't it? Though it very
I love the Hebrew. I love the Hebrew English font. It is very classy.
You know what that's called? It's literally called Hebrish. I just find it funny.
It just makes me hate it more.
I know. And look at his face, dude. Look at those eyes. What are those? Jesus Christ.
It looks like he's very high right there.
It does. I think he probably was. So
we need a couple of these right here.
Yeah.
That guy and the publication he writes for too.
Yep. Kit Clarenberg. We've used him frequently on the show for Mint Press News, as well as like 8 other places.
Show. Friend of the show.
Friend of the show. Hopefully we can get him on soon. That would be nice. Meta's policy on Zionism exposed. Cyberwell scrambles after Israel's ties revealed. Have you heard of Cyberwell, Indy?
Well, I heard of it. I had because I'm in that world, but yeah, it's not good. Censorship industrial complex shit. Here we go.
Well, on July 10th, it was announced that social media giant Meta would broaden the scope of its censorship and suppression of content related to the Gaza genocide. Under the new policy, Facebook and Instagram posts containing derogatory or threatening reference to, quote, Zionists in cases where the term is used to refer to Jews or Israelis will be prescribed. Unsurprisingly, a welter of Zionist lobby organizations, many of which aggressively lobbied Meta to adopt these changes, cheered the move. Emboldened, the same entities are now calling for all social media platforms to follow suit. Yay. The Times of Israel...
Wait. Stop. Back up. Go back one slide. Mm-hmm. When is the reference to Zionists in cases when it's not Jews or Israelis? I guess Christian Zionists?
Christian Zionists. That's fine. You can do that, I guess.
You can make threatening references to Christian Zionists. Jews or Israelis only apply. But no, God, there's so many problems with this. Okay, let's continue. Okay.
The Times of Israel noted that nearly 150 advocacy groups and experts provided input that led to Meta's policy update. This prominently included Tel Aviv's based Cyberwell, mundanely described by the outlet as a non-profit that has been documenting the swell of online anti-Semitism and Holocaust denial since Hamas's October 7th attack on Israel.
Hamas.
These malign activities have had a devastating impact on what Western audiences see and hear about the Gaza genocide on the social media feeds. The impact of these lobbying efforts isn't clear, although almost simultaneously, Zay Squirrel was abruptly suspended from Twitter without warning or explanation, sparking widespread outrage. Only due to relentless backlash that the account was reinstated, more recently Cyberwell...
Shout out to the Squirrel.
Yep. Formal guidance to Meta on censoring the Palestine solidarity phrase from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free, which Zionists falsely claim is a clarion call for the genocide of Jews, and I'm sure our stream on Facebook probably just deleted itself. In January, Cyberwell published an extensive report on how it was seeking to censor many prominent Twitter
one
accounts
person watching. Hi, Mark.
That expressed, it's probably Tom from MySpace, bro, watching. That expressed doubts about the official narrative October 7th, including the widely disseminated, proven to be false libel that Hamas fighters beheaded dozens of infants. Users in the firing line included popular anonymous Zay Squirrel, Al Jazeera, we gotta talk, you gotta come talk to us, the talk is fine. Fine, we're not that upset, we're disappointed. The Gray Zone chief Max Blumenthal and famous rapper Low Key of Mint Press News, Cyberwell claimed such legitimate skepticism was comparable to Holocaust denial. Again, we've also talked about
that's a little scary
censorship on Spotify.
Intermediate award honorees, pretty much all. And truth tellers, and targeted. Maybe that's happening here too. Okay, interesting. Continue.
Well, Breaking. Kit Clarenberg just today announced that after Meta announced it was intensifying censorship of the Gaza genocide, righteous Guantanamo Andy has a number of his reports of the Zionist Holocaust on Facebook on bogus grounds. Meta is on a crusade to silence any criticism whatsoever of Israel. You're wondering who Guantanamo
That's
Andy
Andy
is.
Worthington.
Where have you been? That's Andy Worthington. Look at the title. Horror beyond comprehension, Gaza tactful, realistically accessed, but could be as high as 600,000.
No, 600,000.
Yeah, numbers, Wayne. This goes against our community standards on cybersecurity, bro. All he's doing is like sharing actual information from, whatever.
Well, they think that the 600,000 and even the 186,000, it could be misinformation, which is
like 6 million Jews never, hey, doesn't sound very similar.
Inconvenient, but that's inconvenient to their narrative, and
I
it
thought you were
hasn't
about
been
to
proven,
say,
and it's been
Al Gore me.
estimated. I was going to say that's antiseptic, sir.
I was gonna. You were heading towards inconvenient truth right there. You were heading to.
No.
Thanks, Kit Clarenberg, for highlighting how Facebook has removed 2 posts critical of Israel that have posted change on the 9th, allegedly targeting political attacks on the star in starism. I've been posting about Israel's genocide since October 7th. Haven't had any posts removed until now. Funny how that works.
Well, that's because of Cyberwell.
Yeah. That intervention is part of a broader effort by the firm to force the social network to adopt the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance, highly controversial working definition of antisepticism. This definition, which has been condemned by many sources, including academic David Feldman, who helped draft it, for falsely conveying criticism of the Zionist entity and antisepticism, is a major inspiration for Cyberwell, so too it seems sinister Israeli government's psychological warfare blitzkrieg, ironic, concerned with mass consciousness activities in the U.S. and Europe. So, 35 pro-Israel groups have called on social media platforms to copy the Meta ban. I don't know if you knew this, about adopting the IHRA and whatnot. So, fun. We urge YouTube, TikTok, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Telegram, Reddit, and other social media platforms to follow YouTube's lead by similarly identifying, fighting both classic and new forms of antisepticism. So, on June 24th, journalist Jack Paulson reported that Cyberwell was one component of the insidious effort to shape and spread pro-Israeli narratives across the Western world, known as Voices of Israel. In response to the expose, Cyberwell repudiated any affiliation with the long-running Israeli-funded Hezbollah operation receiving government funding from any country. As we shall see, though,
Wait, what?
there are... Yeah. Yeah.
Wait, what?
Reputed any affiliation with the long-running Israeli-funded Hezbollah operation. No, they would never.
They repudiated. No, what?
They repudiated so hard. We're so hard. Repudiated.
Come on, man. Not us.
As we shall see. Though there are unambiguous grounds to doubt, deny.
No.
So, it's vital to clarify the political ideology and financial forces guiding Cyberwell's operation. Obviously got to follow the money, no? And malign the interests that its censorship activities serve. The nonprofit, quote unquote, is now a trusted partner of Meta, TikTok, and Twitter, and ostensibly assisting these major social networks to combat disinformation. In reality, this grants a shadowy private firm with open links to Israel's intelligence apparatus evident ambitions to take its censorship crusade global, unrestrained power to prevent the reality of Israel's genocide from emerging publicly. Drunk in
not for profit doesn't mean not for money.
Yes.
It just means they spend all the money they get.
Yes. But in response to the exposures of Paulson, Cyberwell, which had hitherto operated with a reasonable degree of transparency, went scurrying underground. Many sections of his website were pruned of incriminating information or deleted outright. This included a highly illuminating section on the individuals running and advising the outfit. Now, visitors to Cyberwell's website are offered no indication of who or what is behind the initiative, which promises to deliver more data, less hate, or data, less hate, by tackling antisepticism.
More jazz, less schools. More jazz, less schools. What? Oh,
online,
well, sorry.
Using artificial intelligence. In a comment released to Paulson, Cyberwell claimed they were forced to remove the Our Team page for safety reasons due to the pair's reporting generating false and misleading information. The statement further alleged, following the publication of your story, our analysts were attacked and identified by name on Twitter. Users shared your article and our employees' names to the wider network, and we became concerned for our staff's safety. I'm sure you can pay for security. It's fine. A review of now purged. Just don't get whatever security you can't shoot on slope roofs, but don't worry about it. A review of the non-purged resumes of Cyberwell's founder and staff points to a somewhat different rationale. Many members of the nonprofit's dynamic team of academics, retired generals, intelligence alumni, and innovative tech professionals. That's just how many ways can you say spooks? But have extensive IOF backgrounds and Israeli government ties. U.S.-born founder Tal Cohen Montemeur immigrated to Tel Aviv as a teenager and followed to serve in the IOF as a lone soldier. She then entered the intelligence sphere via Israeli firm Argyle Consulting, which provides private spying services to international companies and other entities. Sounds nice.
Wait, stop.
Argyle's nice.
Wait, and other entities.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Fred says that originally Facebook labeled this stream may violate whatever. And he was like, what the hell? Sharing a news video? And sure enough, well, I looked at the title now. Well, maybe. Yes, Fred. Thank you. And sorry. We're sorry.
We're sorry.
We're so sorry. We're sorry.
So she served under Zahar Gorgel.
The Zohar. You do not mess with the Zohar.
Don't bring Zohar up. A decorated IDF intelligence officer with over a decade of experience in various cyber and technology roles. Together they struck upon
He's listening right now.
Of driving enforcement and improvement of community standards that hate speech policies across the digital landscape to fight against online anti-Semitism. So they launched Cyberwell. Encouraged by colleagues and mentors elsewhere, the organization employs Yonathan Hezroni, a former analyst and analyst team leader in the IOF's Military Intelligence Research Department.
Sure.
Yeah.
That means that he was one of the computer geeks underground that they barely let out.
Well, I mean, you talked about Poindexter last week, so. Dina Porat, chief historian of the Zionist entity, funded Yad Vashem, who heavily influenced the IHRA's working definition, is named as a Cyberwell advisor. So, too is Major
It's
General...
Yad Vashem.
I'm sorry, Vashem?
No, it's Yad Vashem.
Yad Vashem. So, Major General Amos Yadlin... that one good? Did I get that one? Yadlin?
It's probably Yadlin would be my guess.
A 40-year high-ranking IDF veteran who once held the IDF spying wing and was previously defense attaché to the U.S. Alongside them is Lieutenant Colonel Peter Lerner, a longtime IDF spokesperson. His position raises grave questions about the nonprofit denials of any connection to Voices of Israel. So, of
course,
Israeli corporate records list Lerner as a shareholder and director of Keshet David, as Voices of Israeli chair and founder Michalakin Avni. Jesus Christ. Can we like a little less names, like a first and last?
It's Micah, but sure.
Micah, Formica. In a December 2018 Times of Israel interview, Keshet David initially called Israel Cyber Shield. It is the research and intelligence arm of Israeli government-funded organizations, then known as CENSORS. It was headed by Yossi Kupfwasser, former Israeli Ministry of Strategic Affairs Director General and lead IDF military intelligence researcher. He was the lead researcher for the IDF.
This is really okay. So this is saying that all their spying. This is the military doing the computer cyber spying.
Yep.
And then
big old
commercializing it through Cyberwell, but really the Israeli military is going to end up with access to all of the data that Cyberwell ends up collecting and influencing the narrative of what Cyberwell is going to censor.
And that couldn't be possible at any other tech company, cough, cough. So Israel Cyber Shield attracted significant public controversy in May of that year after it was revealed to have compiled and circulated a dirty dossier on prominent BDS activist Linda Sarsour in a bid to discredit her and encourage universities and other organizations not to feature her as a speaker. As Avni acknowledged,
shouldn't, but that's another story.
Yes. Creating a hostile environment for Palestine, solidarity activist events were precisely the unit's founding purpose. So,
yeah, Linda Sarsour not such a. I don't want to see anybody censored, and I certainly don't want to see people turn on her. But not a big fan of hers either. So, and I can understand, but they also make hysteria. Like she was on Team Bernie. Like really?
I mean, it depends on when that was. We all were young and dumb once. But yes, so if a person puts up a public post on Facebook and says, I'm a big supporter of this or that anti-Israeli organization, not only that, but I'm organizing a demonstration on my campus tomorrow. If they put that public post out for the whole world to know, that's public info. So there's nothing wrong with being aware of that post, making sure that Jewish students on the campus are aware of it. Concert funds, Keshet David, and we get all the information.
We get all the information.
All your information.
We get all the information.
So, funny you go German there. Cyberwell's deep and cohering, if well-concealed ties to the voices of Israel, the Israeli government don't end there. The nonprofit's 2022 annual report with its chief financial officer as Sagi Balasha. Sagi Balasha? The very first CEO of Voices of Israel when the operation was still named CENSORS. He took up the post after leaving the influential Zionist lobby group, the Israeli American Council, right around the time IAC donated thousands of dollars to Keshet David under its former name, Israel Cyber Shield. Fast forward to 2021, Cyberwell was founded under the title Global Anti-Semitism Research Center, Global ARC. Almost immediately, the wholly unknown nonprofit received a $30,000 joint donation. I mean, I will take a $30,000 joint donation, but that's just me.
Not from Cyberwell.
No, but, you know, alongside Keshet David from Morona Leadership Foundation, which is run by Gila Milstein, the wife of wealthy Cyberwell board member Adam Milstein, who confronted IAC in 2007 under the express direction Israel's then consul general in Los Angeles, Ehud Barak. Oh, we can get the names, man. Like
you're struggling.
It's just the names. It's always I could do a lot of other regions very well, but that particular regions of the world's names, you know. So like, can't we just like go like Jebediah or like
no,
you know, no,
definitely not. Definitely not.
From 2018 onwards, former Israel police officer Aaron Vosker. That's the other thing. We got a ton of German mixed in here. has served as chief executive of Keshet David. Simultaneously, he led Argyle Consulting, the private spying firm where Tal Orr, Cohen Montemayor, and Zohar Gorgel. God, these sound like this is just an alien's name, dude. Like, if you needed to name an alien, Zohar Gorgel.
Zohar Gorgel? It's literally like the name of a supervillain.
Like really. a Demogorgon.
And founded Cyberwell.
Yeah.
So like you had Gorgel and Montemayor that had basically founded Cyberwell.
Yeah.
Cohen Montemayor, right?
In a podcast interview in January this year, that while at the company, she provided analysis to Israel's Ministry of Strategic Affairs, same agency that founded Voices of Israel. Cyberwell Audit Committee member Eric Becker is an Argyle alumni. Again, this is all circular crap. So, Paulson,
if it were another article, you'd say to me, you could have done without that whole paragraph right there.
Probably, hey man, tell Kit, condense a little, make it for us dummies. So, as Paulson wrote, in other words, the chief executive of Cyberwell and two of its board members previously worked at the same private intelligence spinoff from Voices of Israel. A director of the spinoff is an advisor to Cyberwell, and the CEO of Voices became the CFO of Cyberwell, as Paulson tells Mint Press. So, these groups are so tightly knit, you can arrive at the same conclusion 10 different ways. These efforts are for sure all an evolution of Israel's long-running anti-BDS program, and I'm glad we talked about all the 10 ways. Glad we made it through that in the last paragraph. So, to make this mephitic web even murkier and more incestuous, stealing your words recently, Cyberwell partnered with like it's Game of Thrones stuff, of the notorious Act.il, which is closely associated with IAC and the Israeli Ministry of Strategic Affairs. The latter leads Zionist entity anti-BDS efforts globally. Cyberwell's 2022 report noted that the nonprofit served as the data provider to ACT-IL's community for the end-of-year call to action on the state of online anti-Semitism. So, they're writing the book on all this. In a bitter twist, it was in 2022 that ACT.IL ceased operations, having secretly for years corralled Zionist activities to target boycotts, justify Israeli oppression and slaughter, and harass human rights groups and Palestinian solidarity activists online under the bogus aegis of organic and spontaneous response, aka bot farming. The platform abruptly shuttered without much in the way of explanation. This may have been triggered by the crusading work of Canadian academic Michael Buchert, who amply exposed ACT-IL as an Israeli government propaganda connivance. That makes sense. From day one. That's Latin, English, Greek, something like that. Cyberwell's pressing.
I want to see that report at some point.
Yes,
I want to see how he debunked that. That's pretty freaking cool. So badly they had to shut the fucking thing down.
right.
That was a pretty wow.
So Cyberwell's pressing desire to disassociate itself from Israel's security intelligence apparatus is undoubtedly motivated by a fear the output could go the way of Act.il if its true nature was exposed and well known. Markedly, both Argyle and Cyberwell executives and Adam and Gilda Milestein refused to respond to further requests for comments from Paulson on their relationship and shared funding with Keshet David. Yet, Cyberwell's Israeli government origins hide in plain sight. In February, Tel Aviv's Ministry of Strategic Affairs and the Ministry of Diaspora Affairs produced a report, The Hate Factor, Policy Online for Combating Anti-Semitism Online. Little notice at the time among its proposed strategies was the exploitation of artificial intelligence. Who would have thunk they would use that, Indy? They certainly don't mind using it to target missiles. So, Cyberwell's USP, to root out and neutralize users on social media platforms posting and sharing content critical of Israel. It is no coincidence that Cyberwell launched months later. Our reporting forensically demonstrates that the IHRA advocacy nonprofit Cyberwell is a spin-out of Israel's most controversial anti-BDS intelligence collection effort. Keshet David, which further used Argyle Consulting Group as its public face, Paulson Tells Mint Press News. The corporate shell game continues, with Keshet being the intel collection arm of the primary propaganda effort of the Israeli government, Voices of Israel. That Cyberwell scrubbed its intelligence ties from its website after we exposed how the nonprofit was born out of this network speaks volumes.
That's what I said.
Yep. So, it is vitally incumbent for Palestine solidarity activists to mount pressure on Cyberwell and demand answers for the questions that its executives now stonewall. They, and of course the spectral actors lurking behind them, clearly have grand plans. On July 3rd, Cyberwell circulated a dubious study on alleged anti-Semitism posting related to the month's UK general election. Content critical of now Prime Minister Keir Starmer's avowed Zionism was specifically cited. An accompanying press release declared, as elections are being held this year in a number of countries, including the UK, France, and the US, Cyberwell anticipates that anti-Semitic conspiracies, accusations, and hateful rhetoric will continue to rise online and in the real world. Unfortunately, one of the few things that opposing parties and sides have agreed on throughout history is the use of antiseptic tropes to blame the other for perceived failures and harms. The fucking projection. Jesus Christ.
Oh my God.
Ugh. So, we can expect similar studies to circulate in the wake of every election and political incident in the years to come, unless Cyberwell's Israeli intelligence run operations are brought to a rapid and wholly deserved halt. What?
That's a big sigh.
Bro, like, what are we doing? You know?
Well,
we're fucked.
That would be the case.
Bad news, bad things are happening.
Well, talking about these things is why Facebook barely lets us keep any content up, and also why we're demonetized on YouTube. You can go to ko-fi.com/Indie News Network, scan the QR code on your screen, or go to the link in the description, leave us a little donation. It's very nice. Otherwise, subscribe, do all the engagement things you already know to do. Every YouTuber asks you to do it. You know where the buttons are. They light up if I say them. Like if I say like, subscribe, comment, share, it's supposed to come up, right? Allegedly, Leave us a little comment. Let us know what you think. Otherwise, thanks for watching.